I'm Jennifer Lal, and I'm here in Geneva, Switzerland with my new friend,
Sheila Saravanan.
And Sheila's written a book, a
Transnational Feminist View of Surrogacy Biomarkets in India.
Right. And then we're going to be speaking later today at the United Nations on the topic of surrogacy. And then we'll be both traveling to Australia next week to speak at a conference that's sponsored by Renata Klein's efforts down there, where we're going to be talking about our new book, Broken Bonds. We've written.
Yes, I've written a chapter.
Yeah. So Sheila and I both have chapters in this book. And for those of you who haven't read Renata's book, I can't recommend it enough for you to read it. And then also another great book. Thank you, Spinifex Press, for these great books that you have put out. But I just met Sheila last night for the first time at a dinner here in Geneva, and I was kind of heartbroken when she was telling me about her research in India and the trauma that these women go through, even now after they've given birth, when she asked them about the babies.
So I did my first study in 2009-10, and I went for a follow-up study in 2011, and the kind of findings that I had was something that even I didn't expect, and it's always like that with surrogacy work. So I found that women have been going through a lot of physical trauma, and the public health impact of it is quite huge than what I expected. So these women have not been able to go back to their normal work, the work that they used to do before. They're not able to do that kind of work anymore because of the extreme forms of hormonal treatment and the kind of injections they are given, and the number of trials that lead to a surrogacy. And sometimes in a special case, there was a woman who it's a very common thing there to do in utero selective abortions, and this woman had to go through in utero selective. So a woman, if your 5 embryos are put into a woman's womb, 5 embryos illegally, and 3 of them, more than 2 survive, they do in utero selective abortion of one of them, and it's a very risky procedure. So this was done on one of the women, and after it was done, she started bleeding because other 2 fetuses got affected, and she was put into an intensive care unit for the next 3 months, and then they did a cesarean and removed this baby at the 6th month, and then she had to she had to just get like 300 euros for that she got at the end of all that. But the health impact of it, like she's not able to do any other work right now. So she used to be a normally working woman, and she's back at home.
So this notion that surrogacy economically empowers women is really, it's a myth.
Yeah, it is a myth because most of these women have gone back into much deeper poverty than what they used to be before that. So before that, they used to at least earn some living, and they were working hard, and they would have taken 10 years to earn what they had earned in 1 year. But this has had huge impacts on their lives. So the husbands got used to taking loans, and they had to pay up these loans. Social cost is very high. Apart from the public health, I got to know that there's a very huge social cost to all this that they have to do.
And so, the work that Sheila and I do, the reason that we came to Geneva, the reason that we're going to Australia next week, is to work to stop all forms of surrogacy. We believe that you cannot regulate this in a way that protects, most importantly, the women, the surrogate mothers, and even the children that are born out of these kinds of relationships. So it's encouraging to me to know that Sheila's out there with her good book, and Renata's great book, and Kais's great book, and then this new book, Broken Bonds, coming out. And for those of you who can't come to Australia next week, perhaps we can do some more live video. But we will continue to work to stop surrogacy now. You said that when you started your research, you were kind of quiet about your position, and it was only once you got into your research that you became more vocal. And what made that change?
Until I finished doing my fieldwork in 2009-10, and then there was data was so complex, and I had to. It was really mind-boggling, analyzing the data. And then I went to more and more places to speak, and then I found myself automatically speaking that this is a human rights violation. And if it is a human rights violation, then I should be taking a stand. This is what I realized. And my stand was no form of surrogacy can be acceptable, whether it's altruistic, whether it's commercial, because artificially making a woman's womb getting ready and making her body getting ready for this kind of procedures, the kind of procedures used, the process is absolutely inhuman. So this is an inhuman form of having babies as well, I think. So the more I worked on it, the more I realized that it's far more, one really has to take a stand, and you have to really think a lot more deeper into this as a subject to actually take that stand as well.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about earlier, is that most people just see this at a very superficial level. They see that somebody who's perhaps wonderful can't have a child, they would make wonderful parents. You have this woman who's willing to help them. Perhaps she has economic need and this is a benefit, this lifts her out of poverty, which we know is not true. But we think if people would just think a little bit more critically about these human rights violations, about these risks and harms to women, that they would perhaps join us in fighting global movement to stop surrogacy. So watch these, read these important books, watch some of the films that our organization has produced, Big Fertility, Breeders, a subclass of women, and get informed and sign the statement over at Stop Surrogacy Now. Thanks, have a great day.
Thank you.